This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who, at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Really big news this week. Everything I have predicted is coming true. The president's lawyers, I'm talking about Donald J. Trump, have not really been doing their job. They've been rolling over. He's got a real crisis right now, the president. General Mike Flynn has just pled guilty to one count of lying to the FBI. This happened just last Friday. Not coincidentally, it happens on the same day that the tax bill is likely to pass the Senate. It shows the political nature of Mueller. He wanted to take the news away from a victory of Donald Trump in terms of what's going on with tax deductions and tax reform and everything else. But more importantly, this indictment, it's actually called an information, to one count of lying to the FBI. It concerns collusion with the Russians. Yes, it does. We don't know that the president was involved, but the scary part is that Flynn has promised cooperation in exchange for one count, a relatively minor count given everything else that's been leaked illegally by special counsel Mueller to the media. And I'm pursuing that. We'll talk about that in a second. But because he pled only guilty to one count, he's unlikely, reports say, of getting any jail time. He's probably agreed to give up certain people in and around the president, if not the president himself. Now, I'm not saying the president has done anything wrong, but when you're under this kind of pressure, Mueller, who's been leaking that he's about ready to indict General Flynn's son, take a number of different actions with regard to alleged crimes that Flynn committed, is under tremendous pressure. And prosecutors can bend people under these circumstances. You know, when people are going down with their family, they'll say and do anything to avoid that. And I'm not making any accusations against General Flynn. I think he's a good man. But I'll tell you something, people do these kinds of things in these kinds of situations. And this shows you exactly where Mueller's going. He's going for Trump's throat. And in my view, President Trump is the only chance we have to save this republic from the standpoint of the president. Of course, we at Freedom Watch are attempting to do that as best we can. And you can go to freedomwatchusa.org. Please contribute to our cause. It's extremely important. We are your Justice Department. Contrary to my prior group, Judicial Watch, which I founded, we do more than just file Freedom of Information Act requests. Judicial Watch does a little more than that, but that's mostly what they do. You can get a bunch of documents years after the fact because these Democrat judges in the District of Columbia in the federal court slow roll everything. And the documents are good. Get to go on Fox News. You get to pound your chest. You get to say how great you are. But you know what? This is what's happened here. You need to bring hard-hitting cases. You need to really take action here, particularly since the president's lawyers are inert. And let me tell you what I've done recently. We have filed a complaint with the federal court. It was assigned to Judge it was assigned to Judge Amy Berman Jackson. Okay, I'm going to tell you about that. We've talked about that before. A highly partisan Democrat. We're going to be moving to have her disqualified from the case. But we have filed this complaint to force an investigation of Mueller's illegal criminal leaks into the media, into the public domain. That's a criminal act in terms of grand jury information, his conflicts of interest, and everything else he's done illegally. We filed that complaint in federal court, and we're seeking to have that court order that the Department of Justice, as I requested 3 months ago, conduct an investigation into Mueller's illegality. The offices to do that at the Justice Department are its ethics arm. It's like the bar Association of the Justice Department for Justice Lawyers. Now, Mueller's technically a Justice Department lawyer because he gets his authority from having been appointed from that hack, Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, who actually is an Obama holdover, because Sessions abdicated his responsibility. Now there's a big problem. We can see what Sessions has created for the President of the United States. So we filed this complaint to force an investigation of OPR, as we call it, and its sister investigative agency, the Inspector General of the Justice Department. Now, the case was assigned to Amy Berman Jackson, highly partisan. We had her on our Benghazi case. She dismissed that case one day before Memorial Day, really to stick it to our clients, the parents of Sean Smith and Ty Woods, who died at Benghazi. This is a wrongful death case against Hillary Clinton. The judge is obviously a clone of Hillary Clinton. She obviously knows Hillary Clinton. She was probably hopeful that she would get a higher appointment if Hillary Clinton ever became president. And, of course, we know that Hillary still covets the presidency, and she is going to run again in 2020. And as I wrote this week, she is counting on Mueller to take out Trump and to destroy people in around him, to give her that door to walk through to run for the presidency, to rehabilitate her. But Amy Berman Jackson has a conflict of interest because she also sits on another indictment brought by Robert Mueller, and that's the Manafort indictment, along with his partner, Rick Gates. And I have said to the chief judge of the federal court, there are leaks that are going on. Burl Howe, please police this. Well, it's also in front of Amy Berman Jackson because the leaks have concerned Manafort. She should be policing these grand jury leaks, yet she hasn't. It's clear in a partisan way she likes what Mueller is doing. And up until just a few days ago, she had Manafort under house arrest, despite the fact that he was willing to post $11 million in bond. She put a gag order on his lawyers so they can't even respond to the vicious attacks on CNN, the Communist News Network, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, Huffington Post, LA Times, and other leftist rags. So consequently, we need to take legally Amy Berman Jackson out of this case. But it's a very important case, and it does have a real opportunity to succeed in front of the right judge. And I'm confident that we will get the right judge, and we need to move quickly. Because what's happening here is that Mueller apparently got Flynn's cooperation. In fact, that's part of the statement of the press release of his special counsel's office. And that means because Flynn got off extremely light and likely without any jail time, he's got to give something up really big, and he probably has already done that with regard to the President of the United States. Now, as I said, this president, the reason I love him is because he's saying the same things that I've said now for 20 plus years. He talks about corruption in the judiciary. That's why I started Judicial Watch way back when. Now I have Freedom Watch. I started that after I ran for the Senate in Florida. I hope you go to our website at freedomwatchusa.org and contribute to our cause so we have the money to win these cases because, we do need it. And it's hard these days. We need more staff. We need more resources. We need to file more cases. But this is a reality here, is that the president's lawyers, comprised of Ty Cobb, who I went up against during the Chinagate scandal during my days at Judicial Watch. He represented John Wong, the suspected Chinese spy that the Clintons put in the Commerce Department, who was alleged to have been passing classified information, commercial information. He was being briefed each day by the CIA to the communist Chinese, the Chi-Coms. We sparked the biggest scandal perhaps in American history at that time, even bigger than Watergate. And, it's super important that the president have a lawyer, not like Ty Cobb, who defended John Wong, who was running interference for the Clintons, as his lawyer. This is the Washington swamp. This is the club. These lawyers want to be cozy with each other. They're part of this environment that's cozy, including Flynn's lawyer, Kilmer, who, just cut this deal. He didn't care anything about the president. Of course, he had to represent the interests of his clients, but he comes from a law firm, Covington and Burling, which is a Democrat law firm. So you've got that two dynamics there. And then you've got John Dowd, another one of the president's lawyers, who's pure Washington Republican establishment. And the Republican establishment in Washington wants to stab a knife into the back of President Trump so they can run their Republican establishment candidate against him in the Republican primary, going all the way back to 2020. So it's very, very important that he have the right lawyers. And, of course, there's Jay Sekulow, who I like, who's a friend. But he's a great religious rights lawyer, but he's not a criminal defense lawyer. He's good at Fox News, spinning this thing. He's going to spin this thing that, gee, it really doesn't touch the president. But you know what? We have to live in the real world. This is just simply not the case. And I wrote a column on Newsmax this week, a book written by Voltaire. I was a French literature major and political science major at Duke University. It influenced me greatly, Candide, who went around South America with a philosopher called Dr. Pangloss saying everything's for the best. Well, it wasn't. He wound up getting his arms chopped off and all these tragedies. We really don't need Jay out there saying everything's for the best right now, because it's not. And this president needs, frankly, to fire his lawyers. He should say, you're fired. Get some lawyer outside of Washington, D.C. Like a former classmate of mine, Craig Gillen, who was independent counsel during Irangate. He was deputy. You need somebody outside of Washington that's not influenced by the politics, because most of these lawyers inside of Washington, they put their own interests ahead of their clients. Now, we're going to come back, and I'm going to tell you specifically what Freedom Watch is doing, because we need to pick up the slack here. Okay, this president, if something isn't done, is going down. And it's clear right today that he's going to go down if we don't take strong action. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to our cause. We need the support, and we need your prayers, because without President Trump, if the Republican establishment gets in there, or if Hillary Clinton gets in there and she's banking on Mueller to clear the way for her, this country is finished. We'll be right back.
This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Dangerous.
I don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I want you to understand this very clearly. This radio show is super important because, frankly, and I'll toot my own horn a little bit here, there's nobody with Washington, D.C. experience that understands the way it works better than Larry Klayman. That's why I am the effect special prosecutor. And we have a petition drive going. And I want you to go to freedomwatchusa.org. Freedomwatchusa, that's one word, .org. Sign that petition, because we're sending it to the president. We're sending it to Attorney General Jeff Sessions to say that I should be appointed special counsel, because the best defense is a good offense. The way you keep the ball away from the other side, and sorry for these NFL analogies, let's talk about college football, because the NFL, frankly, sickens me. It's disgusting the way they behaved. They're helping to destroy this country. But the way you do it is you go on offense. And what should be done right now is make the Democrats and others feel the heat for the crimes of the Clintons. I'm talking about Fusion GPS, where the Democratic Party was the one that colluded with the Russians, pushed back on that, paid millions of dollars to get a phony dossier written by a discredited British spy, Christopher Steele, which was the linchpin to wiretap the Trump people, the Trump Tower people in and around the president. That was the excuse that was being used, because it was alleged that President Trump was colluding with the Russians. And also Uranium One, which deals with bribes to the Clinton Foundation, bribes to them personally. While Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, the bribes came through speaking fees, large speaking fees to Bill Clinton. For Hillary Clinton, greasing the sale of 20% of our uranium reserves, a strategic asset, not just used to build nuclear bombs, but also used for medical purposes, for instance, chemotherapy and things like that. She greased that against American interests, against national interests, in exchange for hundreds of millions of dollars into the Clinton Foundation. Of course, who was supposed to be investigating that? You guessed it, Robert Mueller when he was FBI director. You guessed it, Rod Rosenstein when he was U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland. That investigation was being handled out of the District of Maryland. So these corrupt individuals in Washington, D.C., who have created this stench that the American people are now starting to understand, which I understand going way back. In fact, get my book on our website at freedomwatchusa.org. I didn't name it Whores, Why and How I Came to Fight the Establishment for no reason. I wasn't talking about the girls on Las Vegas Boulevard and, who actually perform a service. I'm talking about politicians, and I'm talking about media. I'm talking about others who have subverted this democracy, and we have to wage a peaceful, nonviolent revolution in the courts and in the public opinion courts to restore this nation to greatness. See, the president's lawyers could have done all these things. Okay, they could have, in fact, pushed for a special counsel like me, because I'm the only one that has the guts to do it, frankly. Nobody else does in this town. Nobody else will take the risk. No one else will stick their neck on the chopping block. Only I will do that. Not even my former colleagues at Judicial Watch. They don't want to do anything that's too controversial. Just do Freedom of Information Act requests and get documents. No, we need more than documents right now. We need action. And that's why we need your support at freedomwatchusa.org. But I'll tell you something. Look at what the president's lawyers could have done. They could have, long before I did it at Freedom Watch, asked for a OPR and IG investigation of Mueller's illegal leaks. They could have brought lawsuits against various people in the intelligence community with regard to illegal wiretapping of the Trump Tower. They could have pushed to get rid of Attorney General Sessions because he won't do anything. We need somebody else in there who actually will take action. And there's nothing wrong in doing that. Even the liberal law professor, Alan Dershowitz, says, the Justice Department is under the president. It's an executive branch agency. You can't make those changes and deal with the merits. It's time for guts. It's not time to play the Washington politics. And I'll tell you something. Unless something is done quickly, President Trump and the people around him in the presidency will be destroyed, and Hillary Clinton will have a clear path to the White House in 2020. And that's why I want you to go to freedomwatchusa.org. I'm sorry if it's sounding like I'm advertising, but I am, because we need greater resources to take this on. My former group will not take it on. They'll just get documents, okay? We need to take things right now and do it at Freedom Watch, freedomwatchusa.org. So go to our website, see what we're doing. We're going to be right back with the former chief of staff of Judge Roy Moore when he was Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. This is going to be a very important interview, and I'm very proud to have him on the show. His name is Ben Dupree. So listen carefully to what we say. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. Support us. We are your Justice Department. Frankly, even the president's lawyers are unable or incapable of doing the job.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm introducing now Ben Dupree, the former Chief of Staff of Chief Justice Roy Moore on the Alabama Supreme Court. I'm very happy and proud to have Ben on the show. I really would like to see Chief Justice Moore elected to the U.S. Senate. He's a man of integrity. I've known him for a long time. These attacks that are occurred against him, that nothing's been proven. His wife is very supportive of him. I think that tells you a lot. And frankly, what we have today is a Salem witch trial that's going out there today. Certainly there are legitimate claims that people make. I'm not dismissing claims of sexual harassment against people. Harvey Weinstein, what we've seen recently with Matt Lauer at NBC. But, in my heart, I know that this judge is a good man and didn't do anything that warrants the way he's being treated. And therefore, I asked to have him come on the show. Ben came on the show, and I'm really happy to have him. Ben, give us a little bit of a background of your prior work with the judge and your educational and legal experience.
Sure, Larry. Yeah, glad to be on to talk about Judge Roy Moore and his run for Senate. I've known the man and worked with him since 2001. Most recently, I was his chief of staff in his second term until he was removed for his stand for traditional marriage here in Alabama. Before that, I was with the Foundation for Moral Law, which he founded, and we worked on religious liberty cases, pro-life cases around the country, a lot of federal appellate court experience. And then before that, I was a law clerk for him in his first term as Chief Justice when he put in the Ten Commandments Monument. In fact, that was my first day on the job, and it was quite an eventful one back in August of 2001. So I have known him probably better than anybody else that's worked for him or worked for him that long, and can vouch for his character, can vouch for his judicial philosophy. As I've said several times, I've never, ever seen him be anything but honorable and respectful toward men and women alike. And certainly if there had been anything in my sphere of influence, it would have come to my notice. And I can say he is a man above reproach, which is not what I can say about a whole lot of people, particularly those in office these days. So I'm glad to stand up for him and talk about him.
Very well said, Ben. I mean, one of the reasons I admired the judge, and I'll tell you, way back when, during the Ten Commandments controversy, and of course we know that the Ten Commandments is actually above the bench at the U.S. Supreme Court. So the hypocrisy and dishonesty of this whole thing is beyond imagination. And the Ten Commandments is the foundation of our legal system. You know, it was Napoleon who looked to Hebraic law, creating, the civil code in France, which kind of modernized legal systems throughout the world. Of course, we have a common law system, but that issue was a big issue. And I remember I had a friend, we were a member of a similar conservative group. His name was Ed McAteer. He had always bragged that he was a Palmolive soap salesman and became a evangelical minister. And he had invited me to go with Chief Justice Moore to Israel to walk down from Mount Sinai with the Ten Commandments. And unfortunately, the second Ifitara, of Yasser Arafat occurred, and we couldn't do that at the time. Oh. But I've always admired his strength because, you see, I try to fashion myself the same way, and I believe that you do too, is that we have to do what's necessary to save this republic. We have to take strong stands. And if the hypocrites in the establishment want to remove someone as a judge or take action against me or whatever the case may be, this is the least that we can do, given that our founding fathers, gave up their fortunes and risked their lives to found a new nation. So I've always admired the judge. And I might say this because I don't want to take up all this time. I want to hear from you. But a few years ago, we had challenged whether or not the state of Alabama should get birth certificates of presidential candidates before they certify them to be able to run for president. Now, why is that a big deal? Obviously, you should find out if somebody has a birth certificate that is legitimate, whether it's Barack Obama or anybody else. And it was Chief Justice Moore at the time who wrote a dissenting opinion of creating a very courageous dissenting opinion saying that the Secretary of State of Alabama, or whatever that election authority is, I forget at this time, should get birth certificates to determine it. And I've taken the position, and Chief Justice Moore did not opt-in on this in his opinion, that Obama's birth certificate, wherever he was born, was fraudulent, okay? And it had things on it that simply made no sense. So he was courageous to do that. And, you take a lot of heat when you stand up for that. And we're not just talking about Obama. We're talking about a lot of Republicans like John McCain and others who should also be able to demonstrate that if they want to run for the presidency. So anyway, I really admire the judge. And tell us a little bit, Ben, about the judge's judicial philosophy in general, because you're a lawyer too, and you worked with him, and why he would make a huge difference in the U.S. Senate. And hopefully he'll get on the Judiciary Committee so he can do that. But even if not, he can still make a difference. So tell us about the judge in that regard.
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to the fact that he's a true believer in both God and the Constitution. And that's a rare combination because usually politicians, and I differentiate him from politicians because I consider him a statesman in the traditional sense. But a politician will use God as a flourish or sometimes as a diversion. And you know, the courts allow the Ten Commandments so long as you don't really believe in them. Or you can acknowledge God so long as it's just kind of ceremonial. And what Judge Moore did, for instance, with the Ten Commandments was say, I'm not putting this in to make it a museum piece. I'm putting it in to recognize the sovereignty of God over the state as the one who gives us rights and as a living present God. And that was why the federal court said, oh, no, that you can't do. Ten Commandments, that's okay, especially if you surround it. So that's why I say he's a true believer in God. He's a true believer in the God that the Declaration of Independence recognizes. So that's the first point. And then the second point is he takes his oath to the Constitution very seriously. You know, he was a West Point graduate and an officer in Vietnam. And, you know, he means those oaths, and he means to carry them out. And so when he takes an oath to the Constitution, he takes that seriously, and he means the oath to the Constitution, not to the latest Supreme Court opinion. And so he's going to bring that belief in God and that belief in the Constitution to the United States Senate, and they're not going to know what to do with him because he hasn't sworn allegiance to some special interest or some political party. You know, he makes a joke in the campaign right now. He's the only one that's been able to unite both the Democrats and the Republicans against him. But he's going to take a true belief in the Constitution. And I don't think we've ever seen somebody in the modern era do what he's probably going to do with each bill that comes up. He's not going to ask, does Mitch McConnell want me to vote for it? And he's not going to ask which special interest is going to vote for it. He's going to say, does the Constitution allow us to vote for this first? And does my conscience before God allow me to vote for it? So that's what I love about him is he's the same man that you see in public talking about God and quoting Scripture and George Washington at length as he is in the inner chamber at the Supreme Court. I mean, he does that in there, too. I've learned more quotes from Thomas Jefferson and George Washington just by hearing him recite them. So he lives and breathes this stuff, and I'm excited that he's going to be able to bring this to Washington. You know, you see Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Well, this is going to be Judge Moore goes to Washington in the modern era.
Well, not only that, Ben, he's a great orator. You know, I've seen him speak. I know the Chief Justice, hopefully Senator to be. I've seen him at conservative groups like CNP and others. I was a member. He was a member, may still be. And he can cite Scripture, you know, right from his heart. You know, I mean, he knows it verbatim, and he knows the Constitution verbatim. And it's very important that someone have that heritage. I mean, that's what our founding fathers had. I mean, these were philosophers. These were men who were extremely learned. And frankly, and I can use a little coarse language, what we have in the Senate today are a bunch of clowns that have probably never even read the Constitution. And it's super important. And what people don't understand, you know, whether you are for gay marriage or not for gay marriage, for instance, and Chief Justice took a strong stand against that. The reality is that the Constitution is clear, is that the protection of gay marriage is not contained in the Constitution. So if you want to amend the Constitution, you know, if that's what Congress wants to do it. But it's not there. Okay, that's not a basis of discrimination, is sexual preference. So sex is in terms of man and woman, but something in between is not. Okay, so you know, whether you're pro or against gay marriage, the judge took the right stand, and you know, you have people up there on the Supreme Court who are willing to bend the rules, Republicans as well, because that's politically correct at this time.
Yeah, so what he has is a proven track record of applying the original meaning of the Constitution, both the federal Constitution and the Alabama Constitution, in many contexts. And again, because he takes it seriously, he takes his oath to the Constitution seriously. And what he's going to be able to bring to the Senate is, with that track record, he's going to know how to vet these judicial candidates or nominations made by President Trump. And you know, the rumor that we may have a retirement very soon. So that may be happening very soon, that President Trump's going to have an opportunity to appoint another justice. And then I think it would be crucial to have Senator Moore there to vote on it. His opponent is a hardcore Democrat. I call him Bernie Sanders with an Alabama birth certificate. He's a hardcore leftist, and he's going to vote against Neil Gorsuch's and Jeff Sessions, for Attorney General and the like. So Judge Moore's going to be able to bring that original meaning of the Constitution, judicial philosophy, where he knows what's going to be interesting for him is he's always been in the judicial branch, since he was a deputy district attorney, anyway. So he's always been reminding his colleagues we don't make law. Well, now he's going to get to make law in the Senate, but he's also going to respect that separation of powers and that the judiciary is not supposed to be the one making the law.
Well, I think that's great. I ran for the U.S. Senate myself. I didn't succeed in Florida at the time. It wasn't the right time to do it, but I was going to bring the concept of the group that I founded, Judicial Watch, inside of the U.S. Senate like a Trojan horse. And I think that Judge Moore is going to do the same thing. He's going to shake it up over there. I mean, they're going to be frightened to sit next to him, which is good, frankly. And although as head of Freedom Watch, which I now run and founded, and we do the work that Judicial Watch used to do, the really heavy lifting, I've never endorsed anybody. I can't endorse anybody as a head of Freedom Watch, but personally, Larry Klayman has endorsed Judge Moore. He was on our show earlier, and I've never done that before, really. That's how strongly I feel about that we need somebody like him. And I guess I also identify with him, even though I was born in Philadelphia. My dad was born in South Philadelphia. I'm kind of an honorary Southerner in a way. I went to Duke University. I went to Emory Law School. And I really resent the attitude of the Northeast looking down on the South and calling all of us racist because we're from the South. And there's a part of that that's going on right now. And frankly, the South is less racist than the North.
2 minutes.
Is my experience. So that's another aspect of why I like the judge, because I just don't like the way people from the South are being treated. And people in the South are true conservatives much more than in the Northeast. So
yeah, there's definitely looking down the nose of the North does to the South, and I think we're seeing a lot of that play out in the national media. They just can't believe that this guy is probably going to win this election.
Well, they can, and there are things to do in the future, too. For instance, we have a case against the NSA, and the Central Intelligence Agency and the Director of National Intelligence. We were very successful years ago in getting preliminary injunctions against this mass surveillance against the American people. We know that's been used against President Trump. I'm sure it's been used against Chief Justice Moore. Ben, the point being here is that I hope that when Senator Moore becomes senator, that he interprets the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment, to not allow for this mass surveillance without probable cause. It's very, very dangerous, and it's being used politically. I want people to go to our website at freedomwatchusa.org, freedomwatchusa.org, because we're still fighting that battle, and we still have cases in the courts over this mass surveillance of the American people, which is almost Orwellian, the judge had ruled years ago, but which is now they're pushing through Section 702 of the National Intelligence Surveillance Act again, and it's extremely dangerous that this kind of surveillance is occurring. So I hope the judge will be a stalwart against that kind of activity as well. But Ben, thank you for coming on our show. Hope to have you on again, and all the best to you and the Chief Justice.
Thank you so much, Larry. Appreciate it. God bless.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I've been out in Las Vegas this week on the criminal trial of Clive and Bundy and his sons, and one other person, Ryan Payne, who the prosecution, that is the defense, the Justice Department, the Injustice Department as it currently exists, is trying to paint as a militia leader, at that the Bundys engaged in a conspiracy to threaten the U.S. government over their land. Big developments out there this week. More hearings. I can't discuss what went on in closed in-camera session, but it deals with the government's dishonesty, and it deals with Obama prosecutors, frankly, who are probably going to lose their jobs in the end because they have engaged in so much corruption, so much lying, so much hiding of exculpatory evidence with regard to the Bundys, with regard to other defendants in this case, that it's really serious. And I brought a similar case to the case that I brought with regard to Mueller, trying to get a court to order an investigation by the Office of Professional Responsibility and the Inspector General at the Justice Department into this prosecutorial abuse, because the judge out in Nevada is not the only avenue to deal with this, and internally it should be dealt with. Of course, I had asked Attorney General Jeff Sessions to look into it. He buried his head in the sand again, like he has with everything else, except for sanctuary cities, and so far he hasn't been successful with that either. I don't blame him for that. But the gross prosecutorial abuse should give rise, when it's confirmed, to an order by the court or internally at the Justice Department to dismiss the charges against Cliven Bundy, his sons, and the rest, because they have hidden things, they have engaged in subterfuge, and they're similar to Mueller in many ways. In any event, that case is going forward very quickly, and on December 19th, we have a hearing in Washington, D.C. in front of Judge Contreras, ironically, the same judge who now has entered the plea against General Mike Flynn, or is about ready to enter that plea against General Mike Flynn, and later sentence him. So I hope that you will follow that and go to freedomwatchusa.org and contribute to that as well, because, see, we're taking real action here. We're not just filing Freedom of Information Act requests. That's good. Get documents. That's fine. But you don't get them in time to have any impact. Okay? Again, it's good on Fox News and elsewhere, but it's not making it a big deal. Now, who is doing this? Freedom Watch is doing this. Okay? Who is this? Larry Klayman, who's doing this. I'm doing this in my private capacity, actually, in front of Judge Contreras, because I believe in the Bundys. The stench is so bad about this prosecutorial abuse that even the judge this week let go many of the defendants, and they don't have true freedom. They're in, halfway houses and homes and things like that. They're still under house arrest, with the exception of Ryan Bundy, who's defending himself in a really great way. But this is serious stuff, and it's something that needs to be done privately and very strongly. And we are doing this right now. So go to ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org and contribute to Cliven's defense. ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org. Contribute to his defense, because this is your defense. You can't have prosecutors that are trying to put you away with false information. You can't have prosecutors who are really running interference for the former Obama administration and Harry Reid that wanted to destroy Cliven Bundy and his sons. And Cliven, out of principle, when the judge said, "I'll let you out," to, in effect, a halfway house, said, "No, I'm not getting out until all the defendants are out. I'm not really having freedom here." And, he says, "Tell it to the jury. I want this thing to be told to the jury." Cliven risks life imprisonment. He could cut a deal with the prosecutors, but he doesn't want to do that, because he's standing in there for you, and he's standing in there for his family, and he's standing in there for God. This is a great, great family, whether it's Cliven Bundy, Ryan Bundy, Ammon Bundy, who are on trial, the whole Bundy family. I've fallen in love with this family. That's why I'm giving of my time personally to represent them. And so please go to ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org. Read about this case, because this is the reason we fought the revolution. We cannot have people busting into our homes, beating up our families, stealing our property, killing our cattle, kicking our dogs, and trying to run us off the land for their own personal interest. And that's what Obama and Harry Reid were trying to do. So I want to tell you something about the Bundy family. The Bundy family stands there for you. So go to ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org. We're going to get back and talk to you next week, because we got some important things to do together. Please join our cause at freedomwatchusa.org in terms of what we're talking about with Mueller, cause with regard to the Bundys at ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org. We'll see you next week. God bless you all.